Welcome back to UPress Play, a sports show produced by FAU Student Media. We're live streaming on OwlTV's YouTube and the Breezeway with Owl Radio. I'm JD. Alongside me is Maddox, Mangan, and Cameron, the usual suspects. And we're back. Today's our first Wednesday hour-and-a-half show. No more Friday show, unfortunately. You know, we're all, college students working, and we had to, move some things along. But we're going to come at you every week, Wednesday, 4 to 5:30. We may even have some bonus time in there, maybe go to 6. We're going to see what the vibes bring to us. But guys, how we feeling? New show. How's the week been? Somebody.
I'm feeling good. Yeah, I'll take it first. I'm feeling good. I'm excited to have like a little extra time slot to talk some ball with you guys. So yeah, I'm feeling good. How about you guys?
Yeah, I'm feeling good too. This week's been pretty solid so far, besides the weather, but that's a different thing.
Yeah, we have a tropical storm coming our way, and I'll be honest too.
Isn't it Category 3? But we're just getting the tropical storm.
Yes, yeah. I saw that USF, FSU, they've closed down school for the rest of the week, and I don't want to be insensitive, but usually when tropical storms or hurricanes come around, I kind of maintain the Florida mindset of I bet, let's see. But yeah, everyone please stay safe. According to updates from the school, school will still be running through the rest of the week for the Boca, Jupiter, and I believe Davie campus. But if there's any updates, you can definitely pay attention to UPress online on Instagram and the University Press website. We'll always have those updates for you. But yeah, I'm hoping it stays dry because I want to say for the last 6 weeks, weather has just been consistently rain.
I mean, that's the rain season right now. I mean, it's weird because I feel like when it's warmer, it should be more rain. Spring should have more rain, but apparently the fall is rain.
I don't know, man. I mean, it's awful too, and I believe we're all commuter students too, so it just makes the commute even worse. And I mean, I have one class that's from 6:30 to 9:30 tomorrow, so if that gets canceled, you'll catch me on Zoom. So hopefully we don't get too much rain, but it stays good. But if you're new to the show, we start off every show getting into our topic of FAU housekeeping. Before we get into national sports, NFL, NBA, things going on in the sports world, we like to keep it home here in Boca Raton. And staying updated on that, this past Saturday, FAU football got absolutely mollywopped by the University of Connecticut, 48-14, in something that we definitely didn't predict going into our last show. So yeah, I'll leave it open to the panel. Thoughts on the game?
I'll take it first. Being that this is my last year at FAU, I have watched my fair share of blowout losses, but last Saturday was by far one of the worst ones I've had to watch. When you talk about getting, beaten in every last phase of the game, that was
mollywopped.
It was
mollywopped.
I don't even know if that goes to describe it. They got dominated. I know 48-14 sounds bad, but I think if you watch the game, you'll probably agree with me that it felt a lot worse. Literally from the opening drive, the offense was lifeless. The defense, I think they made a couple of good stops early on. The first drive, they forced a field goal. Then they got a takeaway the second drive. And just the offense did absolutely nothing with it. And from that point on, the rest of the game, it didn't even feel remotely close. Defense got ran on the entire night. I think it was 421 rushing yards.
A school record.
They gave up a program record against an FBS opponent, which is crazy. And behind that, UConn's quarterback, Nick Evers, who really wasn't anything special in their first 2 games, he looked as comfortable as he had all season. And I don't think he threw for, 88 yards, I want to say, and they still just moved the ball so easily, almost at will, just because they could run the ball anytime they wanted. And then just on offense, they had absolutely nothing going for them. They can't move the ball through the air behind Cam Fancher. And this week, they didn't have a running game to fall back on. I want to say it wasn't 60-something yards that the 2 running backs combined for. So
yeah,
all that's to say that absolutely nothing was working for them. I think this game showed that massive changes need to happen, both sides of the ball. I think the first couple of weeks we talked about it it's only an offense thing, but I think UConn proved that it's an offense-defense coaching program-wide. they're lacking right now. So really nothing good to say about that game,
Yeah.
at least on my end.
And before we get into some of those changes that we have confirmed going into the team, just to read off some of the stats here, the FAU, once again, their rushing leader was indeed Cam Fancher with 71 yards. Second leading rusher was running back CJ Campbell Jr. with 53. Total of 87 passing yards from Cam Fancher. And yeah, UConn set a school record in rushing yards with 423. So just honestly, even if you didn't get to catch the game and you just go through the box score, absolute domination. And I think the point that you made that really stands out to me is that going into the season, especially with that first game against Michigan State, we were like, all right, this defense is legit. This is something that the team can kind of hang its hat on. If the offense is just serviceable enough, we could probably the team can string some wins together. But after this game, it goes to show that it's not just the offense. The defense has a serious problem in the run game that needs to be addressed with that front seven.
You're right. And it came up yesterday because that's the second time this year that they've given up 400 rushing yards in a single game. It happened versus Army, and then it happened again last Saturday. And Herman said that number's kind of skewed because when you play a service academy that's running the triple option and they're running the ball 60 times a game, and to a degree you're right, but I think 400 or 405, I think it was versus Army. Even if I may have been one of the ones that overlooked it, that should have been forecasting almost. And now you don't have that excuse to fall back on. And I don't think UConn wasn't doing anything out of the ordinary. They were just running classic inside-outside zone behind a really talented offensive line, and they were just pushing around FAU. So it's not like the Army game where you could point to scheme. It was just tonight we're better than you and we want to run the football, do something about it. And FAU couldn't. So that at week 4, and you might kind of expect that against when you go up to Michigan State, but week 4 against UConn, you got to be better than that, man. I'm sorry. So yeah, it wasn't just the offense; it's everything. A lot of things got to change.
Yeah, going back into the stats, UConn had 66 rushing attempts compared to 15 total passing attempts. So it's clearly a strategy with these teams coming into these games that we can run the ball against FAU, which I just think is, if you were to tell me that 3 weeks ago, I'd be like, how is this the case? Because there's a lot of pride on that defense. They retooled the defensive line with transfers. Jackson Ambush being the main leader and the captain of that front seven at the middle linebacker group. I think one of the craziest stats to me about this defense is I believe there's 5 to 6 schools that have forced either 5 or 10 turnovers so far in the season, and FAU's up there with Oklahoma and Power 4 schools. And when you see that stat that the defense is forcing these turnovers, it's all right, this must be a pretty good team then. And then you look at our record and you see some of the defensive statistics, it just doesn't add up.
You gotta wonder part of it is how much is just the defense getting demoralized by the fact that they have 10 takeaways, and it just seems no matter what kind of situation they put the offense in with a turnover, they can't capitalize on it. So you got to wonder, how much does that, factor into it? But still, like I said, 421 rushing yards in week 4. There's no way to, square that. So they're going to have to be better this week, I think. Yeah. And, I feel like you'll see probably some changes. Maybe along the front 7 or something like that. And then, quarterback. I don't know if you guys want to talk about that. That's one we're going to see something. I'll let you take that.
Yeah,
JD.
we'll segue into that, but I think just one last stat before we move on to the quarterback change, if you guys want to chime in here. The time of possession for the game against UConn, FAU had the ball on offense for 18 minutes and 3 seconds compared to UConn's 41 minutes and 57 seconds. So absolutely just doubling the time of possession. And I mean, when you just look at the state of the pass game right now, all those missed passes that from Fancher, that's stopping the clock, and that's allowing the team, your opponent, to have more time with the ball. And if they're going to run the ball all over you, they're going to control the time of possession. We pretty much saw that as a recipe of success with Army. And I mean, for the rest of the FAU schedule, if they're looking at the Owls like, man, this is going to be a sweet run defense, and we don't even have to rely on our quarterback to be Superman or even do anything out of the ordinary. I mean, what's his name? Nick Evers?
Nick Evers.
Nick
Yeah.
Evers threw the ball 14 times. And he didn't have to do anything. Their running back put up video game numbers. Robinson, 156 yards and 2 touchdowns. So,
And there was like a couple other running backs with stat lines that looked just as juicy as that. So
it's also like just the sheer difference in the time of possession that has to have an impact on the defense as well.
Yeah.
Like they're on the field for so much longer than the offenses, and if they're just getting ran at the whole time, that is physically exhausting. So yeah, we saw in this game, like, okay, the defense, it obviously has its holes, especially with the run game, which that needs to get worked on because, like you guys have pointed out, teams are noticing that, and they're just their game plan for games will just be, okay, just run the ball, and FAU will kind of fall apart defensively, but it still, I feel like, stems down from the offense a bit, because if they could actually maintain a larger time of possession, then the defense will have those breaks where they can come off the field for, 4 or 5 minutes, even maybe like 6 or 7 if they could have a drive that lasts that long and have time to recoup or right?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Recoup. No,
I don't know why
they need to regroup.
Like,
they need to recoup. They need to regather.
They just need to reset, like mentally reset. Just this week at practice, just reset your guys' brains and go into this week with a different mindset.
Actually, I want to kind of follow something back on what Megan said about the time of possession, because that was one of the 3 things I had for the UConn game, my stat prediction. I was saying you got to trust the defense will do their thing, and apparently the defense really did, put up 48 points and over 400 rushing yards. Fancher had the offensive line protect Fancher and give him time in the pocket to find his receivers. Didn't really do that, even though he only threw for 1 pick, had 87 passing yards. Not really much he could do. And then winning time of possession, as we saw against Army. Army almost doubled, no, not almost doubled, they actually doubled FAU in time of possession. They won. That's kind of rule of thumb for all coaches. If you win time of possession, you win the game.
Mm-hmm.
So those are all big things FAU should have done against UConn, especially an independent school that put up average 30 points on offense, but average 31 points on defense. Defense that allows almost 31 points. And they almost defeated Duke University on the road, which Duke University, even though like a basketball school, has a good football program. So that team is pretty dominant. However, on paper, it looked a lot like FAU could have won that game. They really should have won that game. You could see that from how Coach Herman was and the team reacted after the game, and the presser, him very mad and everything, because he knew there was that possibility they could have won that game. And when I was listening to the game, watching the game, there were pockets where receivers were wide open for UConn, and I'm like, how, as a defense, you allow that to happen on the road?
Yeah.
Yeah. Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, like, another important thing to point out, their third down efficiency in this game was 1 and 8. So that's another thing that really needs to get strengthened, because third down, that's when you kind of have to like lock in and focus and prioritize getting that down, because that's limiting them from continuing down the field. And their penalties, they had 12 for 93 yards. That's basically giving UConn a whole drive within their penalties.
Yeah, 100%. And I think it's a stat that this season FAU has started their first offensive drive with 3 and out. So if you're starting
against FIU, like first 3 plays on offense were 3 and out.
Yeah, every game has been a 3 and out.
And I think the worst part of it, it's not like they're starting the game with 1 3 and out. They're starting the game with like 4 and 5 3 and outs, and kind of like what we saw against UConn. Even when your defense is on top of their game, which they seem to be at the beginning of UConn, they can only hold for so long with the offense not doing anything. Like eventually, even if they eventually you're gonna have to score points. Like that's just how it works. So like that, that's just to like point. You're exactly right. Like it's not just like very like slow start. It's brutally slow starts. It's like takes like the third quarter for the offense to wake up. When you're not gonna win games like that.
Yeah, so definitely some concerns as now FAU football stands at a 1-3 record, but some updates, like Cam mentioned, a little bit of a shakeup to the roster. using actually UP alum Richard Pereira with Athlon Sports. We're going to use his article to report this. It's been confirmed that backup quarterback, I hope I'm pronouncing his name right, Kason Wiseman, the transfer from Colorado. A lot of Colorado ties with FAU now. That he'll be slowly getting worked into the rotation, and he should be seeing some snaps in this upcoming game against Wagner. The quote being that this is Herman saying in his presser, since he's gotten here, Wiseman's gotten a lot more zip on the ball. I think he's playing with more confidence now when he gets in, simply from a guy who was sitting in his living room thinking he was probably never going to play football again. And I don't know if they want me telling me that story or not, but if you didn't, I apologize. But I think that's pretty cool, the growth that we've seen from him, not just emotionally and maturity-wise, but really physically too. The ball is coming off of his hands with more zip. So seems to be that Herman has a lot of confidence in Wiseman to step into this role. But I think what's interesting about this note is that it doesn't seem to be a complete depth chart change as far as knocking Cam to the backup. It seems like there's going to be pretty much a 2-quarterback system coming into this game, and just seeing what you got from that. So I just want to know your guys' thoughts on this update with the team. There's been just doing temperature checks on social media. It seems like fans have been calling for a quarterback change ever since that first game, honestly. The signs have kind of been there. The writing's kind of been on the wall that Fancher hasn't been hitting some of the reads that he needs to, and some of the passes that are there. Even if the protection holds up and the receivers are getting to their spots, there's just one too many throws that he hasn't been able to make. And now, pretty much a third of the way done with the season, it seems as if the coaching staff feels that it's time for a change. So I'm just curious where you guys feel as student journalists. How do you kind of take this for a team that is pretty much not necessarily out of what's the word I'm looking for? Not doing it simply out of talent and an offensive scheme. It kind of seems like a desperation move, in my opinion, kind of having to run a 2-quarterback system.
I'll go first. Just disclaimer: this is not a quarterback change. He said there's a scripted place in the game that Kason will take over like a drive. And I say that just because I think this is a very interesting way of going about it. It's almost like testing the waters of a quarterback change without actually doing it, which I think is interesting because, one, when you're doing it like this, it's kind of like we're looking at it almost like a quarterback change, but it's not. So I don't know if that does anything for the confidence of Cam Fancher, because we're talking about it as if it's a quarterback change. But I also don't know how confident that would make Kason, because a lot of the time, when there's a quarterback change, it's like, oh, we have the confidence of you to now take the keys to the offense, and it's almost like they're half-stepping that a little bit, which is again, we'll see how that works out for him. I just think it's a really interesting, obviously change was needed. Obviously Cam Fancher has not been, a successful quarterback in his 4 starts for FAU. So obviously a change was needed. A lot of people pointed to quarterback, and I agree. I just think this is a really interesting way of going about it, A lot of the times, because you'll just see, whenever there's a obvious quarterback change needed, those tell the backup, hey, you're our guy now. Here's the keys to the offense.
Well, I feel like he should almost kind of take this and take it as a chance to kind of prove that he can do it, because they like you said, they're kind of trusting him enough to put him in the game, but not fully. So if I was him, I would be like, all right, I'm going to go on the field and prove that I can do this and that I could work up to being the starting quarterback. And now that FAU's completed their first 4 games, this almost seems like the perfect time to kind of test out a different type of flow, especially since Wagner's their last game heading into AAC play. So let's say that Wiseman has success and they see that he could possibly become the new starting quarterback. This is the time to test that out before they have to go into their conference play.
While I agree with you, I'm just asking you, just curious, if you guys were Coach Herman, and in your mind, yeah, Casey Wiseman is probably our like quarterback going forward. What would you think what would your like order of business be, like starting him now versus Wagner, or like kind of like what we talked about like with NFL quarterbacks, like letting him ease into it like a little bit?
Well, I mean, I know the question was for you, but I wanted to
No,
jump in on
hey,
it.
go ahead.
I kind of meant it for like the panel. Like,
I think-
I'm just curious what your guys' thoughts are.
I think, you know, we've been riding the Fancher train so far this season, so I think it's kind of, you know, he was named the starter pretty early into the preseason, so I think you have to give him the benefit of the doubt. And honestly, I kind of think of it as like the Russell Wilson and Justin Fields situation in Pittsburgh, where the job is kind of up for air, and maybe this sort of competition will kind of it'll light a fire under Cam Fancher, and this will kind of be like, all right, like I'm no longer guaranteed the starting position and I need to lock in. But that also, on the flip side, like Megan said, this is kind of Wiseman's opportunity to prove that he didn't come to FAU to be the backup. He came here to play some football. But what I'm really curious to see with this change is that, let's say, right, I'm going to assume that Cam Fancher is going to start the first drive of this game against Wagner. But let's say that Wiseman steps in and he struggles too. I mean, there's already been conversations about if this is a coaching problem with offensive coordinator Charlie Fry and why Herman hasn't taken over the play calling. So it'll be interesting to see that if Wiseman steps up into the quarterback position and both quarterbacks end up struggling, whether it be protection holding up at the offensive line, receivers not getting open, I think that would be honestly worst case scenario for this program, that it doesn't matter what the answer is at quarterback, because there's just such a structural issue with the football team that, you know, simply just taking one quarterback out and plugging another one in isn't going to fix this problem. So it'll be interesting to see. But I see Maddox wrote here in the question. Do you want to set up this question and where your thoughts are coming from this one?
Yeah. So, of course, it was listening to a lot of like the tone for the broadcasters when they were calling the game against FAU and UConn. How their tone of it and what some of the questions they're asking was, should be a change, like what JD said. So I was wondering, and asking for the panel, should Coach Herman be fired?
No.
I will say, I think if you're, I need more clarification on this question. Are you talking about mid-season? Or are you talking about the end of the
No,
season?
you don't need more clarification. No. I promise, and I don't mean to, sorry if I have, a holier-than-thou tone. I promise you, getting rid of your, head coach in the middle of the season can only exacerbate, the existing
You're you're fanning the flames there.
Right. I agree that, stuff has to change. If we, want to salvage, a decent season, want to compete for a bowl game, getting rid of your head coach and, completely starting over makes that, incalculably harder. I can't, I don't even, can think of, the words. Restarting with a whole new coaching staff, having to, build a new rapport, having to, re-win over a locker room is going to make whatever you're trying to accomplish so much, much harder.
That was definitely, a first take type of question right there.
Wait. Let me change the question now. So you're saying Coach Herman should be fired? Should Charlie Fry?
No.
Should Charlie Fry?
I'm not. I would say I'm not in a position to say yes or no. But I think everyone's made it clear that offense, something has to change. I want to say pretty much every major offensive stat, FAU ranks 120 or below out of 133 FBS teams. That signals something's wrong. Something's got to change. Now it's on the coaching staff to answer the questions. That's what they get paid for. Is it the quarterback that's got to change? Is it the play caller that's got to change? Obviously, it's something. Now it's on them, who gets paid to do this kind of thing, to figure out whatever that might be.
Yeah. Because thinking what JD said, what if Kaysen and Cam, they both played about the same number of snaps, same number of possession for FAU in that game. However, Kaysen also doesn't do well or even better than Cam. So now, after that game, would you then start going back to that question? Is a head coach an offensive
maybe.
coordinator?
Maybe. I guess we'll just have to see.
Maddox wants heads to
I'm
roll.
saying he's over it. But like again, like something has to change. I guess their call now is I guess we'll try something new at quarterback. So I guess we could like predict, will this work, will this won't. I think that's kind of useless. I think it's glad that they're recognizing change, because I think we all saw it, that they need to change, and we'll have to see if it works.
Yeah. So I think kind of one question that I wanted us to ask, because when we started the show towards the beginning of the season, we did season predictions. We did, we went through the schedule thinking about chalking up what we thought were going to be wins and losses, and now here we are sitting at 1-3, when I believe we had said that we were going to be sitting at 3-1. So a complete flip-flop from what we expected. So I'm just curious, I think all of us kind of had Cam had the expectation that 6-6 should have been the floor for this team.
I predicted 5 and 6.
You predicted 5 and 7. I predicted
7.
6 and 6,
Yeah.
just to get that bowl game in there. And I'm just curious, do we feel like the season is pretty much cooked?
No. Or it depends on what you're.
If my definition of cook is looking for that bowl eligibility, because that would thus require you to go 5-3 the rest of the way. And looking at the schedule, we have Wagner at home, and then
Again, I think, and I don't want to like spoil predict. I think we can all agree that even with as embarrassing as a showing last weekend was, Wagner, we can chalk that up as a W.
I don't know.
Okay.
I'm not trying to be facetious.
No, I mean, okay, I'm not, and like, you're right, like, FAU's not in a point to overlook anybody, but are you seriously predicting they'll lose on Saturday?
I'm predicting that this is going to be a more entertaining game than we expect.
Listen,
I'm not familiar with Wagner, besides the fact that I know that they're not an FBS school.
Right.
But they're sitting at 2-2, which is a better record than FAU. And I mean, it is at home, and it's supposed to be a family weekend. But we're also dealing with a tropical storm here. So who knows if this is even going to be good weather, right? Maybe they're going to if there's no opportunity to even pass the ball, and we're going to have to rely on this run game. Obviously we're dealing with a bunch of hypotheticals here, but. All right, even if we do chalk up Wagner as a win, because
I really want to hear you. Are we doing score predictions this episode?
We chalked like UConn and
we chalked UConn
again, and like.
That's what I just right now.
Y'all want to put some?
Don't
I know
have,
we don't bet. Y'all want to put some money on this?
We'll do that behind the scenes.
We don't endorse gambling, Cameron.
Like, y'all are doomers. Oh my God. Yes, they look bad. Like. This is an FCS opponent where they should have a very major advantage in the trenches. They should be able to run the ball a lot. Y'all are doomers, man. This is crazy.
It's just so hard to have
pessimistic
faith right now.
I get that.
Kinda.
Like, I get that. I watched that game too. It was bad. I get it, but again, we are playing. This is a Division I roster playing an FCS opponent. Y'all can't give them that benefit of the doubt, like just that little bit in this one game.
Maddox, go ahead. Get your spiel out before I answer that.
So even with FAU, it seems to be like on paper where you predict just being like, okay, Division I team versus a like FCS school, you still gotta have a little bit of doubt that there might possibly be something wrong. Because again, we see a lot of times in college football, big name schools against smaller schools, and then they lose. So you gotta look into that reality, especially seeing how FAU has played. Really can't tell until game day, but you gotta think leading up to a little reality, maybe not, because one thing I have learned through my time here at FAU over this season, seeing the schedule, FAU can take out this opponent easy, be a dub, and then being completely opposite. So I'm trying. That's one thing is like I don't want to try make myself like give myself too much hope in a way, because the reality of it is. Right now, the FAU offense does not play that well. Defense has been strong early on, but I feel like now teams are starting to see some weak spots and they're kind of executing on that and winning. So you gotta try to keep some reality set in. Where like, sure, everyone wants their team to be undefeated, but there are some games where you can win, some games you can't. Wagner is a very important game to win, especially since before going to conference play. I feel like that's why it was very smart from Herman to kind of deviate both playing times for both Wiseman and Fancher, but. I mean, against Wagner, you at least have a little bit of doubt, possibly, Cameron.
Do we?
This is why I follow up on that is you have to think with this quarter. Cameron's pissed.
Y'all are crazy,
no,
bro.
But my point being, and I know you should pull that up. But what I wanted to say too is that coming into this game, you've already confirmed that you're going to have two quarterbacks at the helm. We don't know where the state of the locker room is at with that. What the connectedness of this group is. If Wagner's coming in and they smell blood in the water, like Maddox said, anything's possible. And so I understand where you're coming from. Is like, all right, find some guts, and I agree. I hope the fans find some guts this Saturday because we clearly cannot. But pull up. But what does ESPN tell you as?
I'm just saying. Well, and to respond to that, it's not even like this is. It's like if they were playing, say, any other game on their schedule, you can pick any other game besides Wagner on their schedule. I would be hearing all the things you guys are saying, and because I'm saying them too. Like, I hear you guys, I understand. Like, but against this opponent, I really have enough trust that they can get it done. And just a couple stats for you guys. ESPN Analytics matchup predictor: 96.8% chance FAU wins. The line is FAU is a 28-point favorite.
All right, so let me ask you, Mr.
And again, I don't gamble, nor do I live and die by like what the metrics say. But like, come on, I watch that game. I get it's bad. I'm predicting like they win by 14 or like 17.
Here's what I'll say. Cam
Doomers.
No, but here's what I'll say about this game, right? Even if, like, magically, let's say FAU covers the spread, right, and they win by 28 plus, I still don't see this as a get-back game for FAU. That wouldn't be, but, like...
Because all of FAU's
But you're just saying
if they were to lose,
and
to actually... To put it in perspective for you, if they were to lose to Wagner, yes, probably, then they would, to answer your question earlier, then maybe, okay, that's how... like monumental of a loss that would be.
However, also if FAU defeats Wagner, then it's like so FAU only wins against FCS teams. That's not something you want to be known for as a program.
You're exactly right. Which is why this. I don't want to say this is like a gimme win because I don't want to like dunk on FCS opponents because FIU just lost to FCS Merrimack. So it can happen. Monmouth. So it can happen. It's not gonna happen this Saturday. If I had to guess it.
What I want for us to do is going into this game against Wagner, since we can definitely talk about it to death and disagree with it. I want to go down the panel. We'll start with you, Cameron. What the panic scale is at for you personally going into this game? Forget, if we think they're going to win or where they're going to lose. Coming into this game Saturday, on a scale of 1 to 10, what's the panic scale for FAU football?
The same as it was after the UConn game, 6 probably, because it's it's bad, but it's we didn't have the craziest high of aspirations. So I think, like I said, the floor of 6-6, a bowl game, is still within reach, if you ask me.
Yeah, I would, looking at the rest of the schedule with the AAC, I'm of the belief that the AAC is getting stronger every single year. So going into this game against Wagner, if we're going to chalk it up as a win, I would put the panic scale probably at a 6 to a 7. But I'm still not really encouraged. Even with a bye week after that game, I'm still not encouraged going into conference play.
Mm-hmm. So I'm kind of confused. If you, 10 is, you're really panicked?
Yes.
Okay. It's that they're going to lose.
Just
for
overall
the season
temperature check. Yeah, for the season.
I feel like I'm at a 7. If they lose this game, it might increase to an 8.
If they lose this
game, the panic scale exploded and the room's on fire.
11
yeah, but I don't know. I'm just going to say 7. I don't really have...
Megan doesn't want to speak no more because you went in.
No, I'm sorry.
I
got confused by the question, and then my brain just was like...
My bad.
Yeah, because like I said, I'm confused too. So you're saying for panic scale, for us, we have a panic scale?
I thought this was pretty straightforward. I thought it was pretty straightforward.
Wait, are you referring to the team, the locker room panic scale?
Yeah, if you are involved in FAU football, how panic are you going before this game?
Oh, okay.
Okay, yeah, 7.
Yeah.
Because I'll confidently say 7 because they just had a embarrassing loss. Like, and now you're going into this game where ESPN's saying that you should win 96.8 to 3.2%. So I'm panicking, and I'm like, if we don't beat them by at least, like Cam said, like 14 or 20, then yeah.
Again, and if they're in a if they're like in a dogfight with Wagner, like a game where it's like
Right, even if they win, but they by the skin of their teeth.
Yeah,
the panic scale is going up.
If they're, I would say crank it up. That's almost as bad, I think, as losing. Which again, I think goes to shows just how much they should win this game, even with all their struggles. But Maddox.
I also gotta agree with you guys. I do believe we'll be right. Right now, it's like a 7 for the panic scale. Even if they do win against Wagner, I still feel like the panic scale is going to go up like 1 notch, just because, like JD said, the AAC is a tough conference. It has to be arguably the best like group of 5 conference in college football, in all of college sports. And so you're going against North Texas, a home game, and in a couple of weeks you got a bye week. That's good. However, I mean, I haven't really seen much any games really from North Texas really on the record off the top of my head. However, even if you win against Wagner in great fashion by like 20 or even more points, still it's going to FCS school, and then you're going to play against teams around your level in your conference, and you're already started the season off 0-1 in your conference. My panic scale will still be going up at least 1 notch regardless.
I think the only way the panic scale, even with a win, comes down from this game is if we see anything encouraging from Cam Fancher that'll answer these questions about him being quarterback 1, or if a receiver steps up to the plate, but more importantly, staying on the quarterback thing. If Wiseman steps up to the plate and he shows that he's the guy to run this offense, then I think the panic scale can actually come down a little bit, because that will thus allow you that bye week to pretty much change the offense and let the team
change
know
the
that.
playbook around him.
Yeah,
Maddox. Yeah, like just making sure that Wiseman is the guy going into conference play, and you're allowed that bye week to kind of game plan for that. But yeah, I mean, we've pretty much looked ahead at Wagner. We've kind of gone over our season predictions. That topic was so all over the place, and you know, we make the show not easy to clip, but we're gonna try. But speaking of going into this game against Wagner, it's not just a game that the panic scale is on a 6 to 7.
I feel like we're gonna go with this.
Yeah, it's also gonna be a big boom. AJ and Big Justice Day.
Who is that?
You know what?
They started out as the Costco guys. They're on They started out on TikTok, I believe, and they were going to Costco, and it's a son and dad duo, and they would go to Costco and they'd get like the chicken bake and like the cookies, and then they started going to different food places, and if they liked it, they'd go boom, and then if they didn't like it, they'd go boom.
I'll read
See, this is why I'm not a social media influencer.
No, they're not doing a podcast too.
I'll read the press release for those that don't know from FAU Athletics. Florida Atlantic Athletics has teamed up with Boca Raton residents and social media superstars AJ and Big Justice for AJ and Big Justice Night on Saturday, September 28th, when the football team hosts Wagner at FAU Stadium at 6 p.m. Can't believe this, man.
Wait, talk about the boom pack, because that is crazy.
We'll get to that too.
Okay.
The father and son duo have boomed, which is pretty much like their key slogan, to fame with their massive social media following by engaging fans of all ages with their food critiques and other entertaining antics. They are scheduled to participate in various activities throughout the night at FAU, like the student tailgate, the joining the Owl Walk, meet and greet, and things like that. And what Megan had mentioned is that they are doing a boom pack. I can't. I gotta say. I gotta say boom. No, but I have to say boom.
It's part of it.
It's the vibe. They're doing the boom pack, which is 4 FAU tickets for $25. So just, obviously an interesting attempt by the marketing team to kind of, bring attention to Florida athletics.
Plus for like family weekend as well.
Yeah,
it's also family weekend, so just so many elements going into this football game. But I just want to know, with this day and age of social media and social media influencers that we in, is this as I wrote it in the show sheet, is this a W move by the team, or is this kind of just like, what are we doing?
I'm not gonna say anything, bro. Y'all can take this one.
It's just, when I heard about it, I was kind of like, what? Just like, really? They're coming here? I forgot that they were local to the area, but it's kind of, I don't know, how many followers do they have? It's just, I guess it's kind of weird to me that social media influencers are really becoming such like prominent now, and where they're coming to athletic like events and projecting their whole, because they're trying to have the biggest boom.
What does that mean?
It just means,
what does that
When
mean?
the entire stadiums all say 1, 2, 3, boom.
Please be for real. Like, please, can we
This is
just
why the
focus
game's
on the
on-
football games?
Thankfully, the game's on ESPN Plus. I mean,
Well, yeah, no, and I mean, clearly the move by the marketing team has garnered a bunch of attention. Barstool account had reposted the promo video that FAU released where it was AJ and Big Justice. And for those that don't know, this is what threw me off. Big Justice is the like 10-year-old
yeah, I
kid.
didn't even know that. I was like,
And
his name has to be AJ.
AJ is the dad. And so yeah, Barstool, one of the Barstool accounts reposted the video saying like, oh, Alabama versus Georgia, that's a big college football game this weekend. Forget that. We need to tune into FAU versus Wagner. So reading through comments on the social media posts, some people just absolutely hate it and they think it's just nonsense, and other people are literally saying that they're going to tune into the game because they want to see AJ and Big Justice.
Yeah.
Are they going to be FAU's Taylor Swift now? Like, I'm just going to watch a game just for them.
no, that's
Oh my!
I mean,
we've reached
to-
that
I mean-
point.
I mean, to answer do we really think, I guess maybe someone will, like, who already owns ESPN Plus might be like, oh, maybe I'll click on this game.
Over
But do
Georgia
we
and
really
Alabama?
think
No.
someone like actually bought tickets to this game and is going to show up on Saturday solely because it is
yes,
big?
I guarantee that. Especially.
Guarantee. You guarantee
Okay,
that?
I'm sorry, but I'm.
Do you know someone who like bought tickets
Oh,
because it's Big Justice Day?
I know my friends don't go to football games, and I sent them the release about it, and they're
And
like,
they're going-
"Oh, we're going."
Oh my god.
So
Maybe-
that's
okay,
what
good
I'm
thing-
saying. Like, no, but also, Big Just. That just sounds weird to say, but like, how old is he? But
It can't be more than 11.
He's probably like 11 or 12. So
I
I'm
thought
sure.
that kid's like
I'm-
16.
I'm
That kid's
sure
pretty
he
tall,
has
bro.
some, like 12-year-old like little fangirls that are like, oh, I want to pull up to the FAU game, go see.
Big
yeah.
Justice.
We really think so? Hey, I mean,
Yes,
if you're telling
'cause
me
they're
that your
doing
friends
a
are
meet
pulling
and
up to
greet
see them,
beforehand.
all the
No,
power to
and
them, I
we
guess.
were talking about it in the newsroom because Megan's going to be there to
Yeah,
cover the
I'm
game against
actually-
Wagner, and I said, I was like, do you want me to go so you can focus on the game? Should I go cover this AJ and Big Justice? I mean, they're reading the press release. They're going to the tailgate. They're going to join the FAU Owl football team for their Owl Walk, which is going to be such a great visual of just all the football players. They usually come with suits.
Yeah.
They're wearing glasses. They kind of look like FBI agents, all serious.
Yeah,
and then there's
they
going to
look
be
tough,
AJ
and then them two walking in front of them.
just like looking
Boss,
kind
I
of
feel bad for the
goofy.
kid walking through the tailgate as well. I'm like, bro, you're too young.
That does not matter.
Yeah.
That does not matter. If you know anything about college tailgates, there are not. We'll move on from that.
Yeah.
But I get what you're talking about. They're also going to do meet and greets, do photos and autographs, and they're going to be honorary captains for the game's
for the
toss.
coin toss.
So
Oh
not-
my! Like,
not only that, I'm sorry to say, Jay, reveal this, JD, but one thing that I saw in here, I could not believe they did this. Attempting a field goal during the game. No way you're gonna have them dressed
Where
up
did
in
you see
tats.
that?
Attempt-
They're
Wait,
going
what?
to the field and kick a field goal. No,
I don't think they mean.
Yeah,
for
like
the
in between,
school.
yeah,
yeah, I don't
like,
think
in
that it's
between,
gonna be like
four-
4th and 3 and like rolls out Big Justice for like the 43-yard kickoff.
Honestly,
I think that's at like
wouldn't even-
halftime.
AJ's a long snapper.
Yeah, like I think that's
I mean, it
halftime.
could just be like, maybe not halftime, maybe like in between quarters, maybe, but
There's nobody else we could.
Okay, but we're over here debating if this was a good play, and it clearly was by the media
'Cause we're
team,
talking
because
about it.
we've
We're
been
literally-
talking about it for like 10 minutes.
Oh, wait,
point. You have a point. You have a point.
So
Wait,
it's
what?
definitely working to get the team more recognition and just school in general.
One thing I want to say though is I don't want to like throw any shade on the Justice family or the costume.
That means he's
guy.
about to throw
I
shade.
don't wanna do
You're
that,
about to
however,
get throwing nasty shit.
I feel like this is like such a controversial, like weird thing they like FAU marketing did. Like I understand like them trying to get people to the game, but it just seems weird trying to do it as a marketing sense. It seems like I'm trying to think. I had a word originally, but like it seems seems a little like kind of desperate in a way. But like, here's like these big TikTok sensations for like family weekend, and then you're trying to like promote it too much in a way, getting all this like all these like treats or pleasures, whatever it is, like going to the doing the owl walk, doing meet and greets, honorary captains, field goal, leading team out of the tunnel. Like,
so you're not feeling the move.
I just feel like I feel it was just weird.
I will
say
say
they're local, but I mean like it just seems like a little bit off.
I understand where you're coming from, but I think that the sentiment around the effort would be different if this was a 3-1 football team compared to a team that's coming off a spanking from UConn.
You have a very good point.
That's what I was gonna say. It kind of shows like how desperate like FAU is just to get people to kind of show up and be like.
I won't make that
here.
claim. I mean, optically speaking, that's definitely a fair analysis.
Well, I'm basing that off the 4 tickets for $25.
Yeah,
that's what I'm basing that statement off of.
That's literally all of us could go to that game and meet AJ and Big Justice for $25.
Are y'all busy on Saturday?
Except we all can get in for free.
I'm gonna be there just to make sure, like, I'm gonna be like a producer for like some stuff for radio for the game. But
Are you calling that game?
Yeah, but I'm not gonna be like, I'm not there for the AJ Justice.
You're gonna have to bring it up on your call.
They're gonna like bring up like the very beginning, but I can make a whole scene out of it. They're gonna be like, oh, here comes opening. We're about to get to the coin toss. AJ and Big Justice are gonna be there.
I need this kid's government name. We can't be calling this kid Big Justice.
They have his actual name somewhere.
It looks like a Jake.
All right. Let's move on to our next topic.
I'm dead. That was so random.
She's actually looking it up.
I don't think we're gonna.
It's fine. I'll tell y'all later.
All right.
We'll post an update.
Yeah. Moving on. Just getting to the end of our FAU housekeeping, as this didn't really relate too much. This didn't really relate too much to FAU, but it did have to relate to the conference that they're in with the American Athletic Conference. Memphis, Tulane, UTSA, and USF all had to pretty much vocally commit themselves to the American Athletic Conference after there were rumors circulating that the Pacific the Pacific?
Mountain West.
No, but I mean like the acronym for Pac-12. The Pac-12 conference was seeking interest from USF, Memphis, some AAC teams, and they pretty much did a whole press release kind of confirming that these teams are committed and that they won't be getting poached in this new era of conference realignment. There was no reports of any interest from any other conferences in regards to FAU, but that can definitely change in the years to come if the basketball program continues to flourish and if the football team can find some sort of consistency. But yeah, I mean, it's just absolutely insane. We've already seen that Utah State has committed to the Pac-12 as they continue efforts to revive their conference because they need to have, I believe, a certain amount of teams by 2026.
Yeah, it's like 8 teams, otherwise it would be rolled in FCS.
That is just absolutely an insane thing. There was also confirmation that Gonzaga will be joining the Pac-12. So, I mean, any comments or concerns on that, or are we just kind of updating the people that we potentially could have been moving conferences after being in the American for only 2 years?
I mean, I feel like I'm surprised, at least seeing UTSA on the list of teams potentially going to Pac-12. It was like, you all got here like 2 years already. You're like moving to a new conference. So I feel like for the conference realignment kind of like surprised me in that sense. I think though it was like great seeing that fellow schools in the conference are saying not kind of giving into this like NIL thing with the like big money contract thing, which caused realignment. But going to the Pac-12 in a little bit, with the Gonzaga going to Pac-12 for all sports except for football because they don't have a football team, I'm excited for that because Gonzaga is a good school. So I feel like that's great for them. Went from the West Coast Conference, very like lower conference, now being like that higher one, from like a mid-major now to being like possibly one of the majors. Because even though those teams in the Pac-12 for football are really, everyone's like that great, exciting, we really even should consider them like a Power 5 school. However, for their basketball programs, for those schools, a lot of them have very good teams. San Diego State, Gonzaga, Oregon State, Washington State, a lot of good programs. So I think for basketball, in other words, that's great. Football though, Pac-12 not great. However, I'm excited to see Gonzaga going to Pac-12.
Yeah, as far as AAC wise for like FAU speaking, I think it bodes well. Those 4 teams staying in their conference because I think I think most people would agree, like the American's a lot better with Memphis, Tulane, UTSA, and USF than it is without it. And it might not seem like that big of a deal, but like when you get into like the nitty gritty of a season, this will factor into things like strength of schedule, who you're playing in your conference schedule for football, basketball, all these things. So it definitely like may not seem like that big of a news for FAU, but if those 4 teams were to leave, that puts like FAU in a really like odd position where you're like maybe have to think about like possibly like hopping somewhere yourself, because you know without those 4 teams, like that's a really depleted looking American conference as far as just like name and like brand power and pull, because like without those 4 teams, you know, like FAU's becomes one of them, and like, you know, let's be honest, like FAU isn't like one of like the biggest brands in the world. So as far as like the health of the conference that we play in, keeping them, I think, is only a good thing.
Yeah, and I think it was definitely a litmus test with this whole era of conference realignment and just the transfer portal as a whole. It seems like it's just becoming this trend where if you're not happy in the situation you're in, you can just easily get up and leave, which we'll actually get into a little bit later in regards to starting quarterback for the University of Las Vegas. But yeah, I think it was definitely a great test for the conference that, you know, there's definitely potential suitors, which I think is great. It's kind of like that thing where it's like you're in a relationship and you're happy in that relationship, but then you still have people trying to kick it to you, and it's like it feels good to feel wanted, but you gotta stay committed. You know what I mean, with who you're with, and I think that was just definitely it's a great showing, and I like how Cam put it. It shows that the American Conference is healthy and that pretty much everyone's kind of committed to growing.
Yeah, I love JD with the relationship advice.
Hey man, you know, if there's anything I could tell you, don't mess up your for show for some mo. That's all you gotta know. And I'll say it again, don't mess up your for show for some mo. So like I'm saying, USF, UTSA, Tulane, and Memphis, the AAC was there for show. And here came some mo, the Pac-12, looking to try and poach them, and they held it 10 toes down. So, yeah. I mean, I think it's definitely the best analogy that I could come up with.
Great reference.
It's a
that
great
was a perfect analogy.
Yeah.
I mean, you think of some great words that we got. What was like?
What was that word you said?
For against like UConn did this against like FAU.
Oh, they got mollywopped.
Yeah.
You got mollywopped. You got.
I'll put it on the. I'm
show.
gonna put it on a T-shirt. Our cameraman keeps cracking up, and I think he's making me want to crack up. Oh man, that's good. But with all this talk and you know the great things that we get to do at this show, we want to be able to promote other people. So if you're a club or a student organization with an event coming up or wanting to promote your club/organization and you want a live read like I'm doing right now, DM us on Instagram at UPress Sports or UPress Online, and we can read it live on the show. Must be around 3 to 4 sentences, but we're all editors, so we'll be able to fix it for you. So if you're interested in promoting your club, like I said, we're live on OwlTV's YouTube, and we're live on the Breezeway on Owl Radio. Hit us up. We want to be able to promote you guys. Moving on from FAU housekeeping, we're going to get into some college football and stay on that topic. Over the weekend, Saturday, I considered this the game of the week. I kind of get a little overwhelmed with college football. I'm not like the biggest fan just because there's so many games, there's so many conferences.
That's what makes it so great.
Yeah, but listen,
there's so much going on.
There's too much.
It's
like
kind of
I don't like. I'm not gonna say I have ADHD, but my attention span just can't keep up. TikTok brain, big justice brain.
Well, I mean, I feel like it's the same thing as like the NFL. Like it's like scheduled out like your Saturday to watch. Like you have the 12 o'clock slate. Then you have like the 3:30 slate.
Yeah, but there's like 12 games on that 12 o'clock.
Again, you pick the best one out of that and watch. Because I'm a firm believer, like the people who put up like 7 screens with like 7 different games. You are not watching all those games. You are not paying attention to all those games. Stop acting like you know more ball than us or something, or like you're a more football lifer because you watch 7 games, we watch 1. That's all BS. Let's just say it. You pick one game for each slot, and that's what you lock in on.
Yeah, this weekend I was watching the FAU UConn. I was watching.
That was the 7. Yeah, that was the 7 o'clock one.
I was watching the Miami and USF game because
at 3.
My dad and my sister went to that game, and then I was watching Tennessee and Oklahoma as well because that was a big game I wanted to watch around that time. So I had 2 top 10 teams. And even then, I really couldn't pay attention too much of it because I was trying to focus on
wasn't Tennessee and Oklahoma at night though?
Yeah, all of them were around like.
So you were double screening. I can't do that.
Triple screening.
How? Like you're not watching all 3 of those games. Be for real.
Like you're like one game at a time. Yeah.
So you're like.
Basically, yeah. I was also listening to the game by Ken LaVicka. By the way, you shout out Ken LaVicka, great broadcaster. I was listening to his game, the UConn game as well.
How do you
Would
take
you-
in like all that information at
That's
once?
what I'm
I
saying.
would just go like crazy.
I mean, if you look at Maddox's Twitter, bro, this
Yeah.
man is locked in on
Exactly.
No, you're exactly right.
Chinese table tennis.
Yeah.
This man
Everything.
was locked in on all the Olympics, but
But do you not like start like getting like confused like?
well, I don't know if confused the word.
Or I just
Over-
feel like if I'm watching 3 games at one time, I'd be like starting like mixing up like stats. I'd start like
Like
I
getting
can't
sensory overload.
focus. Right, perfect. I think
Listen,
that's
that
a perfect
doesn't
word.
that doesn't
Or-
exist for real ones.
That's
Yeah,
why
exactly.
the people who have
Well, I
like
guess I'm
5,
not
6,
a
7
real one.
screens, I'm like,
No,
you're
Megan,
not
you're
real.
you're a real one.
Nah, but I was just gonna say, like, one thing that college football, it's really confusing compared to the NFL. The NFL, it's set in stone, but we just discussed how there's all these conference realignments within college football. So I feel like that's one of the elements that kind of makes it, like, that extra confusing part.
Yeah, I agree 100%. But if you're going with if I'm going with Cam's strategy, which is locking in on one game, the one game I was locked in for was Colorado against Baylor. Mitchell, if you could run that clip, please. Former FAU Owl LeJontay Wester with pretty much the game-saving catch. Just delivered an absolute rocket from Shadur Sanders into the end zone to pretty much save the game as the clock ran out and they ran into overtime. To me, I'll just go ahead and say it. I think Colorado is the most entertaining team in college football. Obviously, they're not great. But I just think between all the media attention with Deion Sanders and the antics on that team, I mean, they're loud, they're in your face, and it makes games like this just 10 times more entertaining. It seems like every game that they're in is just an absolute dogfight, and I think that's kind of what I'm looking for in a college football team that I have absolutely no stake in if they win or lose. If Colorado loses the rest of their game, the rest of their season, but it's a 1-point game every time, I'm gonna be tuned in. Even if I know going into this game that it's gonna be a loss, I'm just absolutely entertained with that offense. Travis Hunter, to me, is the most entertaining player in college football. The fact that the things that he's doing on both sides of the ball, to me, that was game of the week.
I'll give you that they're definitely not boring. The most entertaining, I don't know. Just because, like, I don't know. I didn't watch except for, like, the fourth quarter and overtime of the Baylor game. The only, like, Colorado game I've sat down and watched was Nebraska, and they got beat down. That was not
This is
entertaining. So I challenge you, maybe watch one of the rest of the games on their schedule, because they have a pretty intense schedule, one of the toughest in the country. I don't think a lot of those games are going to be very entertaining because they just have to play like a gauntlet the rest of the schedule. I'm going to try to pull it up while I'm still speaking, but if I had to put money on it, I'd probably say that Baylor is their easiest remaining game, and I'm trying to look at it right now, and
Yeah, they play
I'd
at
probably
UC.
say at UCF maybe, but UCF's a lot of talking heads. They're not in the AP poll this week, but a lot of analysts or whatever have them as like a top 20, definitely top 25 team. So UCF might give them a run for their money. I don't know.
I just think when you factor in all the things that have made Colorado football, I mean, you have like Quavo and other rap stars pulling up. You have celebrities wanting to pull up. I think
That's
The
got
Rock
nothing to
was
do with what
there.
happens on the field, though.
No, but it
NFL
adds to
alumni?
that. It
It-
adds to the entertainment factor because
You're
this
right.
is a production that we're paying attention to. And so I will say, obviously, there's definitely going to be more entertaining games, especially if Colorado, there's definitely a strong possibility with the remaining strength of their schedule that it's just absolute blowouts, like the Nebraska game. But
There's a
I
chance they
think,
don't win another game all year.
and that's 100% a fact, but I think if there's any chance of it being competitive, I'm going to be tuned in. I'm tuned in to Travis Hunter. We already have the FAU ties with LeJontay Wester. I mean, he's been doing absolutely incredible since he's
Which
transferred.
is awesome. I'm so happy he's
Which
doing
is
well
great
up
to
there.
see.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm locked in. I was locked into the Tennessee-Georgia game as well. Obviously, anytime it's AP-ranked teams going against each other, and if it's in a primetime slot, I'm going to tune into that. But, I mean, I don't know. After that Baylor game against Colorado, I was absolutely sold on this team for the rest of the season. Even if they go on to not win a single game, I mean, I feel like every game besides that Nebraska one has been fairly entertaining.
Like, for me, I mean, when you were saying the words like entertaining, I was like, how do you define entertaining?
Right, thank you.
Because to me, I was like, yes, they are entertaining with a lot of, like, your big name stars, all that, like, stuff that makes him like very popular on social media with like Shedeur Sanders rapping thing, or like some of the smack talk like the coach makes, like offensive, like the players make. However, I also find him it could be a little bit annoying in a way, because like with Shedeur Sanders, like he would like talk smack about his offensive line, and the next week have him and like this receiver
tell him, Maddox, tell him,
trying to like apologize to them and the media at the same time. And also with Deion Sanders, it's kind of like I just have like it's really hard for me to try to choose if I like Deion or not. Because of course, like legendary NFL player, he's giving a lot of opportunity for a lot of players, making built the program to be now a very well-known liked program. However, just things he like says, like with like the media, he's like, oh, certain like local media, like, yeah, I'm not going to speak to you. Not a huge fan of that. Or like telling players, hey, my son's having a rap song party, you have to attend this. Like, I don't like that. However, there's other parts where like I saw this on social media recently, where like the players in the camp, not after like practice, were all like having fun and whatnot. Deion's like, no, redo practice because y'all like barely won that game against Baylor. I am not letting y'all like think like just like let loose and have fun because you did not deserve that. So I feel like there's a lot of different ways to look at Colorado. Definitely entertaining in a way, but it's just how you define entertainment.
You don't take the like drama element as entertainment?
I do. However,
I think that I kind of think that's what he's saying. It's like kind of like.
It feels like
it's a double-edged sword. Like you kind of like entertainment, but also sometimes entertainment can be annoying.
I kind of get what you're saying. I get what you're saying.
I feel like y'all sound like some old heads. That's all.
Are we haters?
You guys, no, because
Cameron's young, so.
Cameron
actually make me feel old saying that. I hope you know. But
no, Cam is pretty much all of. We're all in the same age range. He's not Unk, but he's definitely. We say that with love and pride, because you have a lot of great experience as a student journalist.
Question for you guys though, since we're like on the topic. Say like hypothetical, their remaining 8 games of that is they go 1-7. You're Colorado's athletic director. Are you bringing back Deion for a 3rd year?
Yeah, I think the revenue, I don't think that's even a question. I think the revenue that this guy's bringing in, regardless of if they're winning or losing, is just absolutely insane. I mean, when you look at all the stats, admissions are up. Everyone's going to the football
Just for reference,
games.
that would be like, I'm trying to do math here. That'd be something like 5 and like 14 or something like that.
Back-to-back 4-8 seasons.
Yeah, you're exactly right. That would be, that'd be 8 and.
With JD though, it's like.
If we're not firing Tom Herman, we're not firing Deion Sanders.
That's a good
completely different program.
The athletic director may not care about that because now how college football transitions, like no longer much of like, it's more about based on money, more economics, more money, especially when we soon talk about the UNLV guy. A lot of it's about more like money, not so much, I feel like, more about like the product you play. It's more about the profit. So
exactly. So like so back-to-back 4-8 seasons, like you're saying.
I think you give it at least another year.
Really, you would?
I mean, he's brought in like great stuff to the like
not even just the program,
viewership
the school.
Of the school in general.
Is the athletic? I'm sorry, but is the athletic director? Is he also like the vice president or whatnot for?
I have no idea.
Because if he is, I thought also could be a thing in place as well. It's like,
I'm saying you're the athletic director though, and your coaches went 4-8 back-to-back years.
Because everyone always says money talks, so I feel like it kind
of
talk
to him. Megan.
I feel like it kind of applies here as well.
Well, do you not doubt that, after money might shoring up after back-to-back 4-8
but see,
seasons?
now we're digging too deep into hypotheticals here, because now we're also, this whole hypothetical predicates on if this the rest of their season is straight up L's, which I think there's at least a few more wins on there.
Really?
Yeah, they got a mixture of maybe like.
Listen, anything is possible in the words of Kevin Garnett. Okay. All right, so.
Thank you. See, yeah.
Oh my God, Boston fan.
You had to bring up Boston.
Let's move on. But yeah. Staying on the topic of college football, absolutely insane, wacky story that we're going to try and piece together for you guys that happened pretty much while I was like getting ready for bed at 1 a.m. Starting quarterback for UNLV, Matt Sluka. Sluka. Thank you. Yep. I'll start that all over. UNLV starting QB Matt Sluka announces he will redshirt and not play for the rest of the season. The University of Las Vegas is 3-0, and they're also a front runner for the college football playoff game, a group of 5 spot. with huge wins over Houston and Kansas. But he stated he committed to UNLV for, quote, certain promises made to him, but they weren't upheld after he enrolled. And so after this initial news broke, journalists were honestly were covering it. With the time difference, it was 1 o'clock over here, but I guess in Vegas it was maybe 11 p.m. The reports were pretty much saying that this was an NIL dispute between the quarterback and the school. And from certain reports that I was reading, he was offered in midseason from other schools lucrative NIL offers, which is probably why he decided to redshirt and preserve his body and his health going into the next season, and also preserving that year of eligibility. And there were also other reports I was reading stating that the dispute came from the fact that he signed with UNLV with the expectation of receiving $100,000 in NIL opportunities, and that he only received around $3,000 so far. And so the NIL collective of the school, or spokespeople from the school, came out and said that it was agreed upon before the season that he would receive that payment in 3,000 increments every month. But then there's also reports coming from Sluka saying that the school actually hasn't even been paying for his living expenses, and that he's been paying that out of pocket, either through his NIL money or any sort of other, ventures or, family support. But just an absolutely insane story to see, especially with a team that hasn't lost a game yet this season. They now have to deal with this political drama, NIL drama, and have to pretty much make a change at quarterback. So, I mean, absolutely bonkers. And, we've had this conversation before about, how NIL will play a role in our quarterback situation here at FAU. And, we have mentioned the quote about how the NIL collective is paying Cam Fancher a certain amount of money to play at FAU, and maybe that has played a role in why, and this is all speculation here, maybe a slow roll in why the quarterback change hasn't happened sooner. But I mean, this seems to be kind of a beginning to sort of, I don't want to necessarily use the word a beginning to an end, but a beginning and an introduction to this new era that if compensation isn't met, or deals aren't upheld, that there will be consequences for pretty much the whole football team. And I think the fact that this isn't a replaceable position like your running back or your defensive lineman, your starting linebacker. This is the leader and the face of your team, which when we look at, when I've looked at certain articles and you look at NIL evaluation, the quarterback is always the highest paid player. Even when you look at the NFL, the quarterback is usually your highest paid player on that roster. Rightfully so as the leader of the team, but I mean, how are you handling the situation if you're UNLV and you pretty much don't have a quarterback because of an NIL dispute?
Well, if I'm UNLV, I'm looking inward because if I struck a deal with a 20-something-year-old that whether it's in writing or not, and from what I understand, there's like no type of like in writing contract that he was going to get paid $100,000. But still, if you were under an agreement that you were supposed to pay this kid X amount of dollars to play quarterback, even if it's not under a contract, you should honor that. And if you don't, I think he has every right, to walk away. Besides that, my only real thought is that, like, this is not the last time. One, this is not the first time something like this has happened. It happened at Florida with the recruit Jaden Rashada, who was promised, quote unquote, X amount of dollars, something in the millions. It didn't happen, and he ended up leaving his letter of intent. But this is going to happen a bunch, and I feel like this is just the first time we're seeing it.
Yeah, I'll read some quotes here to get some more information. This is coming from CNN. The quote that Sluka gave to the media, quote, "I committed to UNLV based on certain representations that were made to me, which were not upheld after I enrolled. Despite discussions, it became clear that these commitments would not be fulfilled in the future. I wish my teammates the best of luck." Oh my God, breaking news. "I wish my teammates the best of luck this season and hope for the continued success of the program." And so Sluka's NIL representative, which I guess is his agent, Marcus Cromartie, told ESPN that Sluka was, quote, verbally promised a minimum, wow, of $100,000 from a UNLV assistant coach. So not even the head coach, mind you. Rob Stein, the CEO of Blueprint Sports, which runs UNLV's NIL Collective, denies this claim from Yahoo Sports. UNLV Athletics later issued a statement reading, quote, football player Matthew Sluka's representative made financial demands upon the university and its NIL Collective in order to continue playing. UNLV Athletics interpreted these demands as a violation of the NCAA pay-for-play rules, as well as Nevada state law. UNLV does not engage in such activity, nor does it respond to implied threats. UNLV has honored all previous agreed-upon scholarships for Matthew Sluka. They have now removed him from the football team's online roster, and it is assumed that he will be transferring after this year.
This whole situation kind of seems like a lot of hearsay. You know, it's really interesting to read and hear that he has an NIL representative, and that representative didn't tell him get this a signed contract, because verbal stuff, it still should be followed through, but it's not as official, and you can't hold someone to their word unless you have it throughout audio or something, because a person can always be like, no, I didn't say that, or try to take back on their word. And it's just, this whole situation just shows how much power I feel like college athletes have now, because it's almost like an employee. If you're working at Publix or something, and I don't know.
No, go. Cook with the analogy.
That's just the first thing that came to my mind. But if you're working at Publix and they don't give you your pay after your first 2 weeks, you're going to try to fight that. And if they don't, you're going to quit. So this is basically this same situation. He was supposed to be getting paid, said he wasn't getting the funds that he was supposed to be, verbally told that he was supposed to receive, and then he quit. So it just, this is the way that college football is going to go now, or college sports in general.
I think just to clarify before we continue talking about this, because this is an absolute insane case. You hit it right on the head there. This is a lot of hearsay, because what Sluka's NIL representative is stating is that they were verbally promised X amount of dollars from a coach, while the school, the athletic department, is stating that pretty much Sluka and his representative held the school up for ransom. And I can, obviously, these are all the facts that we have, and from this point on, we're going with assumptions here. I mean, if I'm, a quarterback and I lead my team to a 3-0 start, I can see where there's some sort of grounds for saying, hey, we're off to this great start, the school is getting attention, we might make the playoffs, although it is very early to assume that. I'm kind of hoping to get some of this money up front, but to kind of just punt the season, I mean, that's an interesting choice from Sluka there. But Maddox, please, your thoughts.
Yeah, to me, first off, going back on what Megan said, so do you think, though, that backing out on your team is more important than money? I feel like even though college football has now changed with NIL, and someone whose speech was a lot about NIL, I feel like this kind of falls back to what they said about the Wild Wild West, which was, we don't know how a college football world will look like after NIL, and a lot of it is still very new to everyone, and NIL has been established in or been granted in all college football for about 2 or 3 years now, so it's still very fresh, very new to everyone. However, I feel like with going to this question I have on the show sheet about is NIL cooking college football, I think yes, now a lot of guys are starting to feel a lot of professional athletes in a way. Sure, I'm glad players are getting paid because they are playing a lot, they're bringing all that profit to the schools, to the organization of the NCAA. However, now I feel like they're starting to get a little too cocky in a way with now what you said, JD, about him kind of and his agent, quote unquote, putting the university on ransom, hey, we got a great start. You guys promised me my money. You guys didn't bring it. I'm now not going to play for you guys no more. I'm but shouldn't, at some point that should be, not talked about and just be forgot about? Be okay, well, I love my teammates. I love my program. I love wanting to get a bowl game. Love continuing to play the sport I love. Let me forget about all of that, about the money situation for now, and let me just continue playing. You're going to be no, I can't do it because money right now.
Now, here's what I'll say in response to that, and this is that was a great speech.
Thank you.
But where I think you lost everyone is that in the context that's missing here is that Sluka transferred to UNLV from an FCS school, Holy Cross. So this is what I mentioned prior to us talking about the Shula Bowl and the problem. I don't want to necessarily say the problem, but the nuance to the transfer portal is that when you have these rivalry games and you're coming to these these programs that have a lot of history, you would be a fool to expect that any of these transfer players are going to be buying into any sort of program, tradition, team. And I will say that I see how because I'm trying to remain objective here, I see how this can be interpreted as a selfish move. Where I come into question is that when you redshirt, you're saving your eligibility for the year. So he played these first 3 games, but he still gets another year of eligibility. All right, fine. Let's assume that UNLV paid him only $3,000. They're not going to pay respect the commitment for the remaining $97,000. All right. I would hope for Sluka's case and for his sake that whatever offers he is potentially getting mid-season, which is also illegal in regards to NCAA and their NIL rules. But if he is hearing from other schools, hey, we're going to give you double $100,000, or we're going to get, regardless, I don't see even $500,000 as life-changing money. There are definitely college athletes, the Travis Hunters, the Shadur Sanders, the Quinn Ewers of the world, that are making life-changing money already. But for all this attention that you're now dealing with, all this media, all this press, I hope for his sake that it works out and that it's worth it to, one, abandon the team, because now they have the backup quarterback, so I won't say that they're scrambling, but they have to deal with all this media attention now. They have a game in 3 or 4 days. Yeah. And I just hope for his sake that he gets what he's looking for from, I guess, a monetary perspective and a football career perspective.
However, I also feel like you're playing by a reputation now as a player, being like, okay, if you guys don't give me my money, then I'm not going to play. I'm going to bail out on the program, my teammates, and everything. So I feel like, again, like that, you're not giving him that reputation now for other programs. So even if, let's say, teams are now calling him during the season, but like after the season, they're going to now think in their heads, okay, so, and they think in their minds, so we give him this amount of money. If we don't give it to him, we already know he's going to bail out.
That's
so
a possibility.
We really want him.
That's a possibility.
That's
a possibility.
I was just about to ask everyone, do you feel like teams are going to have faith in recruiting him after this whole situation?
No.
But based off what you just said, no. And yeah, I feel like that's a fair point to say, because yeah, he's a transfer player and this is his first year, so it kind of can be assumed that he didn't really have, like you said, emotional attachment to the team. So
I think that's
if you're another school, like, wouldn't you be concerned that, okay, you're receiving this transfer quarterback, this situation just happened last year, he won't have emotional attachment to us as well. Like, what if something,
Just go back to Holy Cross, man, at this point, I guess, right?
And another, as we were having this conversation with our university press advisor, Wes, it also comes into play the education aspect. When you transfer, not all your credits transfer. You have to make sure that the school even has your degree. So that's why I am just thinking about, Sluka and where his head is at, because there's no prioritization, I guess, about your education, and you're probably, I'm assuming that his head is at I'm trying to max out my potential as a football player and make as much money as I can. But yeah, I mean, I think that's definitely a valid concern of if there's even going to be teams that want to recruit somebody who was willing to go through all this. So to me, it makes me just want to assume that there's way more behind the scenes in regards to what's going on with the program and the promises that were made to him. But I just think the staggering thing to me is when you're a Group of 5 school and you have 2 wins against Kansas and the University of Kansas and the University of Houston. I mean, there's so much potential there. And I just think the fact that this is how it was handled, I always go back to the article that you wrote, Maddox, for the UPress. This is the Wild Wild West, man. And it just seems like that the NCAA at some point is going to have to step in, and there's going to have to be contracts. Maybe there's going to have to be a salary cap. There's going to need to be more regulations, because this is also a copycat world, and I can definitely see scenarios where if there's players, not even just the quarterback, but just players that are in a similar situation where NIL collectives were promising X amount of dollars and they received a fourth of that, that players will use their redshirt eligibility. And redshirt, you're only allowed to play 4 games. So if this is going to if this might be a thing that consistently happens across the board, it's going to be within the next week, 2 weeks. Mm-hmm. So just an absolutely insane story, and it'll be interesting to see how this affects college football and the payments with NIL going forward. Hopefully FAU never has to deal with something like this, but I wouldn't be surprised. Staying on the topic of college football, but keeping it home at FAU, Ole Miss, led by former FAU head coach Lane Kiffin, is currently the number 6 team in the country. They're just absolutely rolling on all cylinders. Just wanted to check in with some home base, and just curious if we think that with this new college format, with 12 teams being in the playoffs, if they have a strong possibility of, seeing some former Owl representation.
It's very hard to make a prediction like that this point in the season, just for speaking for Ole Miss, because I highly doubt that they'll win the SEC and get that automatic playoff spot. But playing the schedule that they do, and if they can get to the end of the season relatively unscathed. I don't know their exact schedule, but playing in the SEC, there's gonna be some big games remaining on that schedule. So if they can get through the rest of the season again relatively unscathed, I think they should be have a good fighting chance to try to get one of those at large, quote unquote, spots. But again, playing in the SEC, I want to say 5 of the 7 highest rated teams in the country right now all play in the SEC. Mm-hmm. It's going to be hard to get out of that schedule, no matter what it is, no matter what SEC schedule you have, even relatively unscathed, that's the word I was using, that's going to be hard.
Yeah, looking at their schedule now, it's not going to be easy for them. They're playing, on the October 12th, they're playing LSU, which is currently ranked at 14th. Then the next weekend, Oklahoma, which is 21, and then 2 weekends later, they're playing Georgia, and they're number 2 in the country, and they've been one of the kind of 4 core teams that's always in the college football playoffs. So looking ahead, they don't have an easy game, or an easy schedule. But if they could get, maybe the LSU and Oklahoma wins under their belt, then I feel like they could have some confidence going forward.
Yeah, to me, looking at their schedule, I feel like their schedule goes Kentucky, South Carolina, then LSU. So LSU is playing great right. I was about to say tremendous. They're playing great. They're playing great right now. So I feel like Kentucky and South Carolina are winnable games. Oklahoma is their first year, especially in Texas' first year in the SEC. Texas is doing pretty well. So far, I feel like they won't have any problems with the SEC. Oklahoma maybe, especially after being 21. And we'll see how next 4 weeks from now, how that will look. However, I feel like that could be a good game for Ole Miss, especially since at home. Arkansas definitely could be a win. Georgia, automatic loss there. But then Florida, not doing so hot. The toughest schedule, probably arguably the toughest schedule in all college football. And then Mississippi State. Those are all those games are winnable except for LSU and Georgia. I feel like the rest it seems to be an Ole Miss's favor. I feel like Ole Miss can definitely be in the playoffs.
Yeah, well, it'll be interesting to see, but I'm always happy to see some FAU representation across all sports. So it'll be interesting to see how that plays out. Stepping away from college football, let's get into some NFL. I feel like we haven't gotten into NFL for some time now, but first thing that I want to bring up was FAU. Lock-in. The Las Vegas Raiders head coach Antonio Pierce made some comments in the post-game press conference after their loss, stating that some people made business decisions. Mitchell, can we run the clip for those people as we pull that up?
The team just didn't seem to show up tonight.
No, they didn't. I think as the game went on, I don't think it was a team. I think there was definitely some individuals that made business decisions, and will make business decisions going forward as well.
Antonio.
Yeah, so honestly, not encouraging stuff going on in Las Vegas, but I mean, he stepped into the role last year as an interim after firing former Patriot Josh McDaniels.
Yeah.
And I think everyone was really encouraged by that hire and the way that he secured the locker room. But I mean, after that, pretty much, going without saying it, that you're going to pretty much fire some people on the football team. I mean, what do you think? Do you feel like that's kind of a good way to go about things and kind of, try to inspire the troops by kind of eliminating the players that are quiet quitting, or is this kind of a sign of the beginning of the end?
I really don't know how to feel about that, because my initial thought is like, if your coach is making comments like that in Chex Watch week 3, that can only be signs of bad things to come. But part of me says that I kind of agree with what he's saying, so it's better to be direct about it, and, being direct about it and, publicly purging all these problems now relatively early on in the season can only help. So it's kind of like, part of me wants to say like, oh wow, like what a dumpster fire the Raiders are, but also like, part of me kind of respects like the way he's going about it, and I feel like that's also part of like who Antonio Pierce is. He's like, from what I like understand, he's like a very like hard-nosed like football type guy, and just from my experience within the game, like that's how hard-nosed football guys like to handle problems. Like they are very open about it, so it really doesn't surprise me. I'm curious though to see how like his team responds, because I feel like some groups of guys might like, again, purging your problems out in the open might help, but also I think another team might like turtle almost whenever your coach is like really holding you accountable like that. So we'll see.
To me, I feel like the NFL is a very competitive league, especially with the AFC, which I believe is definitely out of the two conferences the most difficult conference.
Why?
Especially.
What? Like because the Patriots? Is that why?
No.
I'm just wondering.
I was saying because you got the Chiefs in that conference, you got the Bengals, you got the Ravens, you got the Steelers, you got the Texans, you got the Colts.
Okay, I thought you were just making like a joke, like,
no,
it's like the toughest because the Patriots play there.
No.
I was like, okay, we're just gonna let this go.
NFL is a very tough tough league. The AFC is a very tough conference. You're playing in a tough division against arguably the best team in the NFL right now, the Chiefs. And of course, NFL pro sports is a business. You're getting paid. Players are getting paid multi-million dollars to play the sport, and so these are grown men. So Antonio Pierce is gonna be like, listen, this is a business. If any other place in the business world, if you don't do what we pay you, you're gone. So he's saying, listen, you guys didn't perform to the expectations I was seeing from you guys the past couple of weeks. Still early on in the season, I want to make some changes. I'm gonna be up front saying, hey, you guys are not playing up to what we want. So if you guys are making business decisions to not do your job all the way 100% through, we're going to make some business decisions and let you go because you're not doing what we paid you a lot to do, what we expected from you.
Man, that was you had me ready to run through a wall right there, Maddox. No, but I think the one thing that I really am curious about, right? That's definitely important, and I agree 100% that if these guys get paid millions of dollars to play a game of football, and if you're not trying to tackle guys, or if you're not running at 110%, especially playing for a guy like Antonio Pierce, like that's just not going to slide. But I think the controversy and the reason why it got so much media attention is that this was something that maybe could have been addressed in the locker room, and he instead decided to bring to the podium for the media to thus now talk about. So I think that's definitely an interesting choice, and they currently sit at 1-2 on the season, and third in their division. Obviously lots of football to be played, but like you mentioned, a tough division. Denver Broncos team that is trying to find their identity with their rookie quarterback in Bo Nix. The Chargers with a new head coach that's in John Harbaugh, that's sitting above 500, and the reigning back-to-back Super Bowl champions in the Kansas City Chiefs. There's definitely no room for a lack of effort, especially when you're dealing with such a lack of talent in comparison to the rest. I guess we'll just have to wait and see how that plays out, and in a few weeks, if Antonio Pierce isn't the head coach anymore, then man, I really would hate to be a Raider fan. But with talk shows like this that we run, and as Cam always likes to remind us that it's super early into the season, we're going to come in with some overreactions regardless. So with it being week 3, there's teams that are above 500 and there's teams that are under 500, are right there smack dab in the middle. But I'm just wondering if there's any teams that jump out to you that are just absolutely surprising with the way that they're performing. I'm going to go first, and I feel like this is probably, I hope I'm not stealing everyone's choice. Pittsburgh Steelers sitting at 3-0 with Justin Fields sitting at the helm. Lots of, familiarity here to my left. I think that just is working out, maybe not how they expected, but honestly, perfectly. It's not how they chalked it up, but it's exactly where they want to be. Because the conversation around the Pittsburgh Steelers for the last few years has always been that they're always going to be that middle of the pack team. Under Mike Tomlin, they've never had a season where they've been under 500. But it's a matter of making the playoffs and actually doing something with that playoff spot. And I think this is honestly a perfect opportunity for them to take advantage of. With the situation being in the AFC North. I've always said that I thought this was the most competitive division in football, and it seems to pretty much flipped itself on its head. With the Baltimore Ravens sitting at 1-2, the Cleveland Browns being an absolute dumpster fire with what's going on with Deshaun Watson, and the Cincinnati Bengals doing what they did last season, which is getting off to a slow start. The fact that they're sitting with a perfect record going into week 4, I definitely wouldn't have chalked that up, but I don't know I don't think they even know what's going right necessarily, because they bring in Russell Wilson as your expected quarterback one.
You got Justin Fields too on the team.
Well, I think that's what's most surprising about it, is because I'm not incredibly surprised that they're winning with Justin Fields, because as we said, the Steelers are one of the winningest franchises in football. The 10 straight winning seasons in the playoff, however many seasons. I am surprised, though, that they are winning because of Justin Fields. Because leaving Chicago, I had completely written Justin Fields off. I thought the problems that were the same that not only that were they the same, they exacerbated the same problems from college over 3-4 years, whatever it was, in Chicago. But a lot of them are getting a lot better in Pittsburgh. He's getting the ball out a lot faster. He's a lot less, feast or famine, boom or bust, because he's checking the ball down a lot more. And, some people might use that against him, his unaggressiveness, but he's almost or at least 3 weeks now, he looks like a completely different quarterback just because how efficient he is compared to how he was in Chicago, which is credit to Pittsburgh. Chicago, they could not figure out how to be successful with Fields, and they've just kept it simple with him, made it easy on him, and they found success already. So credit to them.
Does it make you feel? I'm sorry, Maddox. Does it make you feel any type of way that your Bears are sitting at 1-2 with Caleb Williams?
No, because it's not if the Bears had Justin Fields right now, they'd be 3-0. Because
that's definitely a lazy narrative.
I mean, I don't want to Disney like that, but I don't feel again, Justin Fields is a different quarterback for 3 weeks than he has been in Chicago. So if he still was there, I doubt all the strides that we've seen for 3 weeks would be there. Partially, and again, a lot of it has to be with Pittsburgh playing to his strengths when for 4 years Chicago failed him.
Yeah, I think that's definitely a great point. But, that's definitely my surprising team right there.
I'm shocked that the 49ers are 1-2 right now. Just because I haven't seen their second 2 games, but I kind of caught a little bit of their Jets game, and they looked so solid. And, last year, they almost, they went to the Super Bowl. So just seeing the loss against the Vikings and then now losing against the Rams, too, I guess I kind of thought that they would start out more like the Chiefs have, not necessarily 3-0, but at least 2-1 or something like that. That's really the main thing that's kind of stood out to me this week.
I think that's definitely interesting. They are dealing with a lot of injuries on both sides of the ball, but it seems like for the Chiefs, not to really, to rope them into the conversation, but they never deal with Super Bowl hangover, and I feel like this is something that's always been a problem for other teams is when they lose that Super Bowl, it's really hard for them to recover. And the hope is obviously you're dealing with a shorter offseason when you make it that deep into the postseason, but health has always been a concern for the San Francisco 49ers, and last year was kind of the one season that they were able to put it together. And now that they're dealing with injuries to George Kittle, Deebo Samuel, Brandon Ayuk dealing with the contract dispute in the offseason, I think that's definitely a valid one there. They're sitting at the bottom of the NFC West, which is a division that they pretty much ran for the last few years. So it'll be interesting to see how that pans out for them.
Yeah, for me, my surprise team, actually going back to what Cameron said about how Justin Fields played against the Bears, now going to this new team. You always want to see that players who didn't do so hot, had a lot of back talk about them, a lot of criticism by the media, but then going to this new team and starting their season all over again, starting their career all over again. Love to see that. Same goes for the Minnesota Vikings, 3-0, with originally had their rookie quarterback, J.J. McCarthy, starting the season. He got injured week 1. Then comes in Sam Darnold from a bad season with the Panthers, I believe was his last team. So now him, 67.9% completion rate, 657 completion yards, through 8 touchdowns, only 2 interceptions in his first 3 weeks here. So you'd love to see now he's already changed his career actually over from how he originally started with the 49ers, not so great, Panthers, not so great, Jets, not so great, and now going to Minnesota and revived his career in a way. So I feel like that's one team that surprised me is how the Vikings, with this team 3-0 right now, being led by.
I picked up wind out of my sails there because I was about to say my surprise is the Vikings 3-0, and not only that they're undefeated, but they beat 2 Super Bowl contenders.
One in the Niners.
I would say two really good teams in that 3. And I think just we all collectively wrote them off a little bit. Definitely me. I figured they'd be probably 3rd or 4th in the division. I was leaning towards 4th. But through 3 weeks, not only they look like they probably have a chance to win the NFC North, but again, they beat 3 teams that we had, or 2 teams in Houston and San Francisco that we were these are probably 2 teams that we're gonna see in the conference championship. So and to be doing that with Sam Darnold, who's elevated his play from any other year we've seen, that's 100% my.
Yeah, I picked him up on waivers. That is currently my starting quarterback because in one of my fantasy football leagues, I had Jordan Love, and he's out until to be determined. And then I actually have Jaden Daniels on my bench and Sam Darnold. So 2 quarterbacks that I actually weren't really expecting to be all that have kind of, stepped up to the plate. And I think this NFL season has just been really interesting to start as far as the parity. And I'm always a big fan of seeing different teams, shine and go on to the playoffs. But it's early, and there's definitely tons of football to play. We have a whole semester pretty much to kind of go into that, but I just think week 3, I think a lot of talking heads in the media said that in week 3 there's no such thing as a must-win game, but I would say that there's definitely some can't-lose games. And I think certain teams, for example, being the Cincinnati Bengals losing to the Commanders, I feel like that was definitely a game that you couldn't lose because now you're dealing with an uphill battle the rest of the way. So it'll be interesting to see how this pans out. But I'll be honest, guys, I'm getting kind of tired. And this is our first hour-and-a-half show. I think we absolutely killed it. So we're going to wrap up out of here. And Maddox, kick us off. Where can they find you?
They can find me on Instagram at MaddoxBlade04 and on Twitter at Maddox Greenberg.
You can find me on Instagram at Megan_Bruinsma and Twitter Megan Bruinsma.
You can find me on Instagram at jd.delcastillo and on Twitter at jd_Delcastillo.
You can find me on Twitter at CamPriester247.
Once again, thank you for tuning in to our UPress Play show. We'll be back next week, Wednesday, 4 to 5:30, with updates on this Wagner game and the boom that we'll be seeing then. There'll be tons of topics for us to get into. Make sure you follow us on Instagram at UPress Sports and on Twitter at UniPress Sports for any updates. But yeah, it's been a pleasure, guys.
Peace.